Okay, welcome to Viewpoints. I'm Michael,
And I'm Nico.
and this is actually our first show. We'd like to welcome you, and we got a lot of things coming up. And the lens is basically a concept we came up with, and right now it's about bringing academics and the real world together, discussing real world phenomena from an academic standpoint, and also like bringing our own expertise in there. But from here on out, it's not really clear where it's going to develop, and we'd be really glad to see the same experience with you guys.
The way we came up with this is when I came to uni, I met Michael, and we had very enriching conversations about technological world, technological trends and markets. And we thought it would be good if we could create something to share it with the rest of the world. So this is where we are, and this is our first session. We hope you like it. So Michael, our topic today is about Sony, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right, Mitko, and I think it's a very interesting topic. In the consumer electronics world, Sony was once like a giant, and everybody was respecting it for its products, its premium quality, its good service. And now look at it, in the products they have, we often say, and like they're not up to date anymore, they get mediocre reviews and still charge a premium price. And if you go by theory, that's never a good thing. So let's see what we find about Sony and where they are right now and where they might be forward.
Yeah. So let's start where Sony were before, right?
Yes, I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, obviously Sony, as one of the big Japanese technology companies, was dominating the last 20 years in consumer electronics, maybe even the last 30 years. They were obviously arguably the number one in television and portable music, like with their Walkman series. They had a lot of innovation going on. They brought the Blu-ray, as recently introduced with PlayStation 3, and whatever they did, everything seemed to turn to gold. So Sony was obviously on a streak of success. But then things started to change. Sony got like sloppy with their product releases. They got late releases, as with the PlayStation Sony 3. The innovation they like seeked for, it was extremely expensive, like when Sony developed the PlayStation 3, and now they're just mediocre at best.
Well, a lot of people have been claiming that ever since companies such as Apple came in, Sony has been struggling to maintain with such innovation as other companies have come in. Because as you can see, even the case of PlayStation 3, Sony has been coming in with incremental innovation rather than breakthrough, and people were seeking something new as well.
I agree with you on that point. I think Sony was always like building up on what they had, but they were really bad, and this is like a stigma for Japanese companies, because they're really long-term oriented. They got plans for several years ahead. So they had the Walkman, they were improving the Walkman. They had the PlayStation 1, they were improving PlayStation 2, 3. But they rarely like tried to get into new business fields. Like when Apple came in and brought like the Apple Touch, nobody considered it to be like a gaming console. And now Nintendo and Sony are facing the problems. And the same way that Sony never ever considered like housewives being a target audience for the PlayStation, but exactly that is what Nintendo Wii did. From strategic perspective, that's like searching for a blue ocean, like a place where nobody is doing its business. And Sony and many of the Japanese companies were never really good at it. And we could dive into like a lot of like Japanese management techniques, which might be like one of the reasons for that. But I think we shouldn't drift too far away from our topic right now. But I agree with you, they were just like too focused on what they had and never really looked over like what they could have. So
what do you think is their core issue at the moment? If you look at the situation right now.
What is their core issue? I think their core issue is that they still are mediocre at best when it comes to adapting to the competitors. So far, we don't want to chip into what they are going to do from now on, right at this point, but say up to last year, whatever they did, they had like a partnership with Sony Ericsson where they produced phones that didn't live up to the hype and standards. They had a very strong home market, however. We gotta say in Japan, Sony was still like one of the leading companies in every field. That made them a little bit contempt when they were looking overseas, because they felt like the products should still be good. Japanese people are buying them. But overseas, and especially in America, things started to shift a bit, and that's what caught them, I think.
I think another issue which needs to be pointed out is Sony has traditionally been leveraging in their core products such as televisions, in which they haven't made a proper profit for at least 4 years by now.
Yes.
So I think they stuck to these TVs they stuck to these for too long, hoping that it would turn out well. But at the moment, the TV division is, as you all probably know, is doing very badly.
Yes. Again, I think a lot of this can be explained with like a Japanese mentality of long term. Who in fact took over TV at the moment? You can tell me, right? Samsung and many Chinese manufacturers, right? So how can they do it? And they do it by having faster innovation cycles. They bring products faster to the market, and they charge a less premium price for still good quality hardware. Yeah.
I think as you mentioned before, the premium price is a big thing because consumers are continuously seeking cheaper products for more value, and Sony aren't just capable to deliver that superior value anymore, because with the products which are just as good as others or even inferior but premium priced.
Exactly, and I think this is one of the problems, and many at Sony don't seem to grasp this issue. They still consider them as technology leaders, but in fact they're just mere followers at the moment, and they're having a hard time differentiating themselves. What Sony arguably does is like they have an extremely well-designed product. Usually, it's better designed than the competition usually, and I think even like assembling and constructing, designing products, that's really one of the strengths of Sony. But then again, what they use is basically industry average. They assemble great products with hardware that's not innovative enough to charge a premium price. And people just like stopped to pay for that extra.
Well, I would also like to add, I agree with you, but I think another issue there is, although they may build very good products, very nice hardware. If you look at Xperia phones, they're very nice products. But I think there is slight problem with the interface as well, and the ecosystem with Sony phones or Sony products, which is not so consumer friendly all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, which I would actually like to take to the next point, which I would like to mention. Last year, Sony appointed Kaz Hirai as their new CEO.
So it's Kazuo Hirai. Kaz Hirai was actually the predecessor.
Oh, sorry.
No problem.
Kaz Hirai, who came up with the One Sony new strategy. Now, what do you think about that?
First, we should maybe mention what the One Sony is basically about. The One Sony campaign or like strategy starts by laying off 10,000 people at Sony, which is like an incredible step. Japanese companies in the history have rarely been able to lay off people because it was just not in their mentality. But they are facing really strong competition right now, so they had to take steps. Further on, he argued that Sony had to focus again on its core businesses, and now we're getting a little bit more managerial, strategical. They argue that the core businesses, core competences of Sony lie in TV, gaming, and mobile.
Yeah.
What do you say? Would you argue that this is really...
I think I agree with the competencies, although I'm not exactly sure, but the TVs, as we all know, TVs haven't been making profits, and they have been, even their partnership for the TVs was done with Samsung, who actually are their competitors now.
Okay.
So, according to outsourcing theories, Sony has initially been outsourcing or forming a partnership with Samsung to produce LCD screens, but the Samsung eventually got a grasp of the technologies and managed to surpass Sony in this aspect. So I think if you narrow down, maybe not TV, but entertainment is a better way to go for it. In general, like the design of the home studios at home, of entertainment systems in general. So I think I definitely feel Hirai is going in the right way when focusing on Sony's core competencies. Also, the layoff of jobs. Sony, I believe they required a big restructuring of their whole organization because they had a lot of jobs, a lot of things which were doing the same thing, with a lot of innovations which were pretty much doing the same thing as well. Mm-hmm. And they appointed two people. two people, one for user interface, and they appointed one person for innovation as well, to seek for new strategies, to seek for, as you said before, blue ocean strategies. So I think that's a very good way of starting things, you know, to have one vision coming up from the top, rather than to be sort of decentralized.
Okay. I agree with you on the big restructuring issue. I think Sony has been like a sleeping giant. They just fell asleep, they were too slow, and they need some action going in to motivate the employees again. However, I'm not sure whether I agree on the TV business being a bad choice, because recently Sony actually announced like a partnership with Panasonic, and it's the first time in a long time that Japanese companies form a partnership in order to catch up with the competition, in this case Samsung again. I think it's extraordinary that they actually did the step, and it seems like they finally grasped that they're lacking behind. And they're going to focus on developing new technologies for OLED displays. OLED displays, as we know, are mostly used in smartphones, but even like Sony's planning to use them big and cheap in televisions. So I think they're finally getting to the point where they see they have to move. Using LCD technology hasn't been the best thing to do for the last years, and therefore television might turn out being okay. But another thing that I don't really agree on is like naming these three businesses core competencies, because these might be the core businesses they see themselves in, but a core competency is something different. A core competency, according to theory, has to be aligned with certain criteria, which are being valuable. Core competence has to be valuable to a company, to a product, and to the consumer. It has to be rare, so not everybody can have it. And even the other companies that can have it shouldn't be able to imitate it perfectly. So non-perfect imitability. And also it should be an organizational fit. But if you look at like a business can never be a core competency. I mentioned Sony has the core competency of really good engineering and design teams. So hearing about this criteria for core competencies, do you agree? Do you think that like focusing on business, doing like a really old-fashioned strategy will actually help them to overcome the difficulties right now?
I agree with your point about the competencies. I think what you mentioned, that they should be focusing on their competencies, is a good thing. But maybe they recognize themselves that they have the competencies in these businesses.
But what are the competencies? These are the core businesses. They might have like a special experience there, but do they have what it takes to bring that different industry to a new level and like to differentiate themselves from competition? And this is where like the real theory sets in again. What could be a core competency? What could be something that they differentiate themselves from?
I mean, for now, one of the core competencies was building, as you said before, building very good hardware.
Okay.
And which, if you look at their devices, even the new PS Vita, which was introduced, has very high benchmarks and has very good hardware. So that's definitely one.
Okay.
What do you think is another one? They have very good designs for their products as well.
Okay, but will this allow them to continue charging premium prices?
I don't think so, because their products, although they are very nice, they have very nice hardware, are just like all the others. If you look at other companies, they have nice hardware as well. So I think there might be something missing there, with like to be able to innovate, to be able to create new products, and to be able to gain the market share back. And the proof of that is also that they are still losing market share. You know. I think they had a press conference last month in which their shares at the moment a tenth of Samsung's.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I think Sony is in a really difficult position right now, because they can't obviously go on like they did. But even with restructuring, they might have to rethink their whole image. Sony will have a harder and harder time like maintaining their premium image as it is right now, and I think they have to maybe take a step back from this premium image and charge more competitive prices, because right now their hardware is less competitive. And they can still invest a lot of money in innovation and maybe have like, at one point have a disruptive innovation like they had with Blu-ray or they had with the new display technology, and that might allow them to charge premium prices again. But it would be a mistake, and it would be like really bad towards consumers to continue charging premium prices for mediocre hardware. However, on the other side, I would think Sony has a lot of potential actually to have real core competencies which they never grasped. Because what they did, they focus on business, they focus on manufacturing. But Sony is bigger. Sony is like a traditional Japanese company, they are called Keiretsu, and what is special about them, they have their own financial branch. They have a media branch. We all know about Sony BMG being one of the biggest like music labels in the world. They have movies. Why don't they create something out of that? Why don't they create a television and a PlayStation that closely links into this ecosystem? We all know they try to do that. They have software for the PlayStation coming up, but it's always mentioned on the side note. It's never their real focus. And I think this is an opportunity.
So, are you saying as well that they should try to explore new market opportunities where maybe some others haven't gone into that much?
I wouldn't say exploring new opportunities, new markets, but Sony should learn that these businesses they have, they're not separate entities.
Yeah.
They can have links and create bonds between these markets. They can work together. Why was it Apple that created like an online distribution for music? Sony is selling their own music. Why didn't they create that? They have like IT engineers. Why didn't they come up with something like the Apple iTunes Store? That is because Sony is too focused on having these entities focus on themselves and develop their own stuff. But it's an incredible amount of like brain power Sony has at its company, and they're not using it, in my opinion.
I agree with you on this one, and I think Sony needs to create sort of an ecosystem where all those separate units, where at the moment they're separate, they should become unified and be able to have a synergy between each other.
I agree. This is like a necessary step right now, but it won't save them, because people will just say like, okay, Sony is another player that creates a new ecosystem. Which ecosystem should we buy into? I think it won't help them much, but Sony is well known for bringing up disruptive innovations, and they might change the market again with like a long-term investment. But in order to be successful in that, they should maybe change a bit with the way they are doing their business and they're managing their company, because I think that's the biggest issue right now. And therefore I think that the One Sony initiative has the right perspective in terms of like refocusing. But it shouldn't be, Kazuo Hirai shouldn't stop there. There should be a lot more initiatives focusing more on the internal working environment.
I definitely agree with you on that point. And very much.
Okay, very good.
Also, I was actually wondering how to move a little bit, because I read in the article the other day that Sony has new initiatives to actually form partnerships with other Japanese companies now. One of them is actually Fuji. They want to form a partnership with Fuji. They want to form a partnership with Olympus as well to go deeper into the imaging industry, with Fuji to go into the imaging and medical industry as well. So what do you think about that sort of diversification from consumer products, from music to go into medical industry to build basically tools that will help to aid life? Do you think Sony, since we were talking about core competencies before, do you think Sony's competencies can shift into that industry?
It might, but I think this is a very, very dangerous step for Sony, because diversification has to happen in times where a company has the backup, the financial backup to do that, and if the other businesses are running well, it's always easy to find new adjacent businesses. But as it is right now, with gaming struggling against Microsoft, Xbox and Nintendo, with television falling behind Chinese manufacturers and Samsung most prominently, and music facing piracy issues, falling behind
Apple as well, online streaming.
I think a lot of their revenue streams actually broke away, and they should solidify and build a solid basis for the current business, and then consider going to new industries. And when they go into new industries, they should consider how can our core competencies contribute to this. Going into the medical business is a huge field. What are they doing in medical business? So if they say, however, our competency is from our core business, televisions, so we have digital images and like panels, and they can use that for creating medical digital images or like
or chips as well.
Chips, cartridges. It's like they have to see how can they apply what they're good at in a different industry.
If you look at the Boston Consulting growth metrics, I think, if you look at the matrix, they are sort of missing a cash cow at the moment, because they had those cash cows before, but they are not performing that well. As you said before, that a lot of departments are missing out. So they need to grow, they need to rebuild that cash cow so that they can, if they want to diversify, they need to gain enough capital, they have to gain a solid base first in order to be able to go into different industries.
Yes, I agree. I think actually the portfolio matrix, as old-fashioned as it is a very good example for Sony, because arguing theoretically that you have a certain amount of like new investments you can take and getting the money from traditional businesses, this doesn't work for Sony at the moment. They always rely on their financial branch to provide money and invest a lot in their traditional business without getting anything back, I think. I agree. Very interesting, and I think this is something that one needs more time to investigate, and they've come up with proper conclusions. But Sony right now is a very, very interesting work in progress, and we're either going to see Sony exiting some industries very, very soon, or they finally are able to reinvent themselves.
I think though, because the new strategy only came in either this year, I'm not exactly sure, it was the beginning of this year or the end of last year, but I think for such a big restructure in a very traditional market as Japanese technology industry, they need more time to settle in as well. So I think I think it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen in the very near future with Sony.
I totally agree, and I think even we, for the Lens, will be reporting a lot more on Sony. So I think we can call it a day for now. Let's wrap it up. Sony is in a very, very difficult position, but also a very interesting one, and it's definitely a place you want to be at the moment as a consultant or as a manager, or because you can actually achieve something. Yes.
I think Sony are also at a position where they might be willing to listen to opinions and to new opportunities or possibilities they might have, which would be feasible for them. So yes, I definitely agree. It's going to be very interesting in at least the next 24 months to follow out what Sony is going to come up, how it's going to cope with the market, and whether it's going to survive or it will have to divest.
Yes, I agree. Okay,
Well,
then
thank you for listening.
Thank you for
and
listening.
I hope you enjoy it. We'll see you the next time.